Okay, another important area I want to discuss is the theories on infant psychosocial development. And I'm going to go over just the three grand theories because they're the most important and highlighting the difference between each theory's perspective. So we start with the psychoanalytic theory. If you guys remember that under the psychoanalytic theory, we had Freud, who preached that basically every stage of development has some sort of a conflict, and that conflict has a base or a source, and that source has to do with sexual parts. So he preached that the mouth is the source of gratification during this early stage of 0 to 1. And that stage is basically where, that babies use their mouth to kind of figure out their environment. So starting with them putting their hand in their mouth or trying to suck on their thumb or hand, to manipulating the breast or the bottle, to trying to stick things in their mouth as they explore their environment. This gratification that comes from the mouth is going to translate to either a healthy development, according to Freud, or a fixation if that area is not satisfied or fully satisfied. So oral fixation is basically being stuck in the oral stage, and it manifests itself later on, according to him, into a personality that seeks mouth-related pleasures. So if that person was still stuck in that area, they will end up becoming a personality that, talks a lot, or bites their nail, or is extremely sensitive or needy. The next stage, he believes, is going to be based on the anal, and the gratification is going to come from that control that the child will have over their bodily fluids. And the conflict over there is going to happen if that baby has a parent who did not really go through that toilet training stage in an easy way. Either they were overly strict or they were too lenient. So that interaction is going to set the stage for what kind of personality that child is going to grow up to have. Erikson, who was a student of Freud, did not really deny the concept of, stages, but also conflicts. So he also believed that this development is based on overcoming certain conflicts. And if we overcome them, we develop typically or naturally, or we don't have any problems later on. But if we are having a problem or have a conflict that was not resolved, then it will manifest itself later on. So in his perspective, he believed that it's not really about the sexual part, but rather about the social part. So he really believed in the first year, it's really a question of, is this a trustful world or not? And that is going to happen if that synchrony, if that attachment happens, and that child is comfortable finding that whenever they serve, they get a return in their interaction. Whenever they have a cue of, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm cold, they're getting a caregiver who responds with satisfaction of their needs. So they develop trust. But if they were having a caregiver who did not listen to those cues, did not respond to those cues, then they develop mistrust, or what we call, insecurely attached child, and therefore they have a conflict that will manifest itself later on. As they grow, And yes, just like Freud said, they will go into that stage of gaining control over their body. And that is the stage of them trying to assert their independence and become a person. So they use their words, they use their body language, they use everything to show that they are autonomous. They want to be independent. Their favorite word is no. They want to do it. It's me. It's a no because I can say no and not comply with your requests. And a lot of parents take that as a defiance, but it's really a stage of development. So that autonomy, if it is faced with a caregiver who understands that stage and gives them options always to try to get out of that conflict by saying, would you like the red sweater or the blue sweater? Would you like to eat your banana first or your apple first? Would you like to run to bed or hop to bed? Giving them those options so we can get over those conflicts is going to help them develop. But if we had a parent who really did not understand that concept, and instead of helping the child develop, they engaged in those power struggles that we hear about, and parents who are complaining about the terrible twos are just simply not really realizing that this is a stage of development, that this is a stage where the child tries to gain independence, not to defy you, but rather to kind of assert their ability to see that they are not really an extension of the parent. They're a separate human being. They're gaining that self-awareness that we want them to get. So the problems that is going to develop because of those two conflicts, whether it was according to the psychosexual or the psychosocial development, are going to create adults who are also going to have problems later on in life. That's according to the psychoanalytic theory. Now, in the next theory, the behaviorist perspective is that really, if you remember, they really did believe in focusing on learning, and that everything that we do is basically learned. It's a habit that we become accustomed to, and repetitive patterns of care. So if I had a parent who taught me to be fearful of certain situations, or to be joyful, or to be a happy child, then I'm going to have a happy personality. If I had a parent who was highly anxious, and I kind of absorbed that anxiety in the way they interacted with me, and that's probably going to manifest itself in a personality that is highly anxious. So basically, the behaviorist perspective is that we are what our parents kind of condition us to become. And we transmit this in every single interaction that we do with our children, even in the how we treat the connection, how close we are. Some cultures carry their babies from the first day they're born. They're with them. They're attached to them, and that is the kind of like the distinct difference between proximity or proximal parenting versus distal or far parenting. Parents who choose to put their kids in cribs in different rooms because they really value independence, or parents who scold their kids for crying because they really don't feel that crying is a normal or a natural manifestation of sadness. So we condition our children how to feel and how to act according to the behaviors theory. The third grand theory is that of the cognitive perspective, and the cognitive perspective really does not really look at early experiences, does not look at the subconscious like the psychoanalytic theory, or does not look at the learned patterns, but rather goes into saying that the way we develop our personality is based on how we understand um, our environment. And our environment can be the person or the thing that we're dealing with. So it's really about what they say the working model. The working model is basically that model of the person or the concept or the um, place that we develop in our mind because of that interaction. So early experiences will give us an example or a model to use to reference for other interactions. So in the example of a let's say a caregiver, if the baby developed with a caring adult in their life, a secure base for attachment, a person who listened to their needs and had that synchrony in early childhood and developed secure attachment in later years and became a base for them to socially reference strange situations, then the baby has in their mind a working model of, let's say, a mom as a caring figure. So the model of a mom gives them a reference of a good thing. It's a warm, loving model. But if that parent or that mother was a source of pain or a source of ambivalence, like the securely inattached child, and it was never there for them. Their needs was never satisfied. They were always left alone or left for someone else to care for, or did not really develop an attachment. Then the working model that they have of a mom figure is not a positive one. So therefore, their interaction is based on the assumptions that they have because of that working model. Now, working models, according to cognitive theory, are not set in stone. So a child might have interpreted the experience that they had in their childhood as a negative working model for what a mom is. But then later on, as they develop, they come across a different working model and a different experience that adjusts that working model and say, that was one example of how moms can turn out to be. There is a different model out there, and perhaps different experiences can be reinterpreted and then adjust that working model. So this is why we say the cognitive theory really emphasizes the importance of early experiences, because they are basically the base that helps the child develop, whether this is a positive or a negative working model.